Welcome to the first Think Tank episode. I am your host for this episode, the reigning, defending, undisputed Geekade Universal Champion, Dean the Vestlord DeFalco. There are many third-party controllers on the market today that are trying to compete for your attention. You have nice substitute products that are fairly decent, but maybe not quite as good as their first-party competitors, like the gear you can get from PDP. You have high-end controller options that try to stuff in even more features to give you an edge while gaming, which will come at a premium like the stuff from Razer. But what if you want something that's going to deliver a solid performance while not making you go broke? This is where 8BitDo is entering the scene. 8BitDo isn't any stranger to peripherals. The company has been around for 7 years and have had some pretty successful products such as their wireless mods for retro controllers. While controllers like 8BitDo's SF30 and GP30 take the tried and true design of the Super Nintendo controller and make it Bluetooth, other products like the N30 Pro and Pro 2 seem to try to find a middle ground between modern and retro gaming. The N30 Pro and Pro 2 takes what they know with the design of an SNES controller and tweak it for modern sensibilities by adding in dual analog sticks at the bottom center of the controller and throwing in 2 extra buttons on the shoulders that should act like makeshift R2 and L2 buttons in the event you play something where those functions are necessary. While the controller operates well enough, it's incredibly small for someone with even normal-sized hands, and feels cramped for the amount of real estate they had to work with. The next controller, the SN30 Pro, goes back to the drawing board and improves the design by making the controller bigger while still being ergonomic and sensible. Gone are the extra shoulder buttons, being replaced by actual analog triggers. This marked a huge improvement, and many users thought this was a solid retro controller. But why settle for a great retro controller when 8BitDo knows they can do more? Enter the SN30 Pro Plus. This is your wrestling equivalent to when Triple H returned from injury. It looks like the original, but this thing is way beefier and is here to kick ass and take names. This controller right here is the modern controller that can do it all. Retro games, you have an incredible D-pad and a responsive set of face buttons. Modern games, tight analog sticks, and surprisingly well-built analog triggers make this a standout for any game you could think of. Need the ability to fine-tune your settings? 8BitDo brings you the aptly named Ultimate software that will let you customize everything from analog stick and trigger sensitivity to even setting up custom macros for this controller. Of course, this controller, like their previous products, works on various machines at the press of a button. I tested the SN30 Pro Plus out on PC, Switch, Raspberry Pi, and I didn't run into any issues. I was most impressed with how easy it was to use on the PC. Connecting it was as easy as setting it to Windows mode by holding down the X and Start button at the same time, hitting the pair button at the top for a few seconds, and once the indicator lights started scrolling back and forth, I hit the pair button on the computer. Within a few seconds, I got a nice little vibration from the controller to let me know we were ready to party. The best part was when I booted up Steam, the SN30 Pro Plus reads as an Xbox 360 controller layout, so I know it'll be compatible for almost anything that supports a controller on there. I popped on Enter the Gungeon for a playthrough, and this controller just felt like home. Enter the Gungeon requires pretty precise movements and reactions, and the SN30 Pro Plus carried me 5 floors before a good controller wasn't just enough anymore, and more skill was needed to get any further. I'd also like to note that the rumble felt great in this game, very strong, and you can always adjust the vibration in the Ultimate software if you'd like to fine-tune it a little better. I was curious how this controller was going to handle me switching from system to system on the fly, and the answer is, it went as well as you could have imagined. 8BitDo has always done this well, but perhaps because everything just feels great on this controller, the ease of switching systems is accentuated even more. After you sync everything up to the controller once in each mode, all you have to do is enter the button command to switch to another mode. It's a 2-button combination that is always Start and one of the face buttons. Start and A is for the Mac, Start and B is for the Android, Start and Y for the Switch, and Start and X is PC. I'm sure you noticed that I didn't mention the Pi. Well, as is everything with the Raspberry Pi, it's a little more complicated than the rest of the systems. It can work on either the Switch mode or the Android mode. If you don't have a Switch, then either is fine. If you do, the Pi will have to be paired to Android mode because the two systems cannot be synced to one mode simultaneously. As far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be any difference which mode the Pi is synced to, so don't worry about losing any features. Now, I decided to give this controller what I call the Tetris Test. This is my way of testing the D-pad. If the controller can make it through a marathon mode of Tetris without accidentally hard dropping a piece, you got a pretty solid D-pad. When Tetris 99 released, the Switch Pro controller's notoriously bad D-pad was highlighted even more in this game, with players constantly accidentally hard dropping pieces early. I put the SN30 Pro Plus through 146 lines before I ended up losing, and not once did this controller hard drop a piece on me accidentally. I was very impressed, so I booted up more retro games from the SNES app and the NES app, and it just felt as responsive as anything else. The SN30 Pro Plus also has a home and capture button, so you can reach these commands without putting any sort of crazy button combination. Before we go to talk about the Pi experience, there's a few caveats with the Switch experience everyone should be aware of. While its core gameplay functions are spectacular, this controller does not include any of the Nintendo proprietary technology, including HD Rumble or an NFC chip reader. While the Rumble works, it seems that Nintendo's HD Rumble Pack transmits data differently than a regular Rumble Pack would. So, the Rumble Pack isn't as strong on the Switch as it was on the PC. In fact, in some games, it was barely noticeable. The SN30 Pro Plus also cannot wake up the Switch from sleep either. That would have been a nice feature to have, but it's not a deal breaker. Playing on the Pi was pretty much what you'd expect. As far as syncing it up, it's like using any other Bluetooth controller on the system. The Pi isn't the easiest interface to use. You'll need to have a keyboard or another controller working to set up the SN30 Pro Plus in the settings. It's not a simple process, but nothing ever is on the Raspberry Pi. It took me 5 or 10 minutes to sync up and map the buttons. This is the only system that I've tested where you have to map the buttons, but since the Raspberry Pi contains multiple emulators for systems, it's understandable that you'd have to map them out. The Pi will take care of the inputs which will be used for each system after that. All the run-of-the-mill systems work well with the controller, from NES to Sega to PS1. I didn't run into any major issues. Unfortunately, though, I couldn't get the vibration to work on the PS1. This seems like it's more of an issue for the Raspberry Pi than it is for the controller. As I've read, this is an ongoing issue with the emulator for multiple controllers, not just the SN30 Pro Plus. But it was worth remarking. In closing, the SN30 Pro Plus isn't just a good retro controller or a good substitute for a first-party controller. This thing is the real deal. 8BitDo has made the perfect PC controller that can do so much more. At $50, that still comes in cheaper than a new Xbox One, Switch Pro, or even a PS4 controller, and you won't have any problems setting it up or need any adapters to get it working with any of the other systems it is compatible with. The vest only uses the best, and the best is the SN30 Pro Plus. Thanks for checking out our first Think Tank special. Check out Geekade.com for more great content, including a written article about this controller with a full gallery of pictures on the SN30 Pro Plus. Stay Vesely, keep playing games.